Not sure if many of you know, but we do have a virtual tier within the Design Coven virtual pro member tier, which includes 3 virtual meetings a month where we set intentions. We do group coaching. So bring all your questions. We answer those questions and you get to learn from other people going through the same struggles as you. We also do a business practice meeting. So we'll have somebody on to share a business practice that we can all benefit from. And then we also do a product training. So getting a sustainable, eco-friendly line to come on, share who they are so that we can be supported with other like-minded businesses. And if you're not quite ready for pro, you can always join our free community where you will connect with other like-minded holistic interior designers. You don't have to be an interior designer if you are kind of just dabbling or you're aspiring or you're looking into this field. We invite everybody from all journeys, and you don't, again, have to be a designer. You don't have to have a degree. We're just a beautiful community of like-minded people looking to create healing spaces, not just for ourselves, but for our clients and future clients. Come join us at designcoven.com/join. We are at episode 82 of the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. And today our guest is Rachael Cohen. She is a magical being. We are going to dive into incorporating plants into our homes, into the homes of our clients so that we can uplift the vibration within those spaces. Rachael Cohen is a spiritual life coach, nature connector, plant stylist, energy worker, and intuitive medium. She is the creator, owner of Infinite Succulent, a San Diego-based wellness and botanical styling company, the author of Everyday Plant Magic and Infinite Succulent. Rachael's previous work as an environmental educator and wild animal specialist left her anxious and depressed about society's destruction of nature. A creative relationship with plants transformed her life, and now Rachael is dedicated to reconnecting people with their souls through nature's infinite love, along with creative, intuitive, respectful, and magical interactions with the natural world. You're listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. This is a podcast that guides you as a new or inspiring independent interior designer navigating your entrepreneurial path. Here, with my over 20 years experience, I will share my holistic approach to design with intention and ancient practices, including feng shui, all incorporating mind, body, and spirit into my design projects. You will also learn from seasoned interior designers as they give strategies and insight of how they built their businesses and continue to work in the field. Together, we will discover supportive trade partners, new ideas, creatives, and inspiring artists from around the world. I am your host, Rachel Lorraine Crawford.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I bet it smells nice too. I like to roll up my own beeswax candles, and they're so much fun to watch them burn. Yeah. Yeah. It's really satisfying. Yeah. Well, we should collaborate on a moon circle because I often bring magical candles for people to make, and I'll bring herbs, and with the beeswax roll up, you can actually sprinkle stuff in them as you roll them up. So yes, exactly. And we can even write your words on little pieces of paper and roll those in too. So it's actually one of the rituals in my book is these magical candles. So we should definitely collaborate on that too. That'd be so fun. All the fun things. That's my favorite. I work with that deck every morning. I love that deck. You and I are just aligned. I have it. I have it right here. Yeah, I really like this one because I feel like it's super modern, but it has that traditional feel to it still. I love working with that deck. Yeah. Uh, uh, mhm. No, I love that. That's beautiful. It definitely speaks to me too, because over the last week and this week, I've been really feeling the energy of this full moon we have tomorrow. And it's this full moon in Gemini, and the Gemini is like the twins and like the two voices, like the higher brain and the lower brain. And it is learning to balance out like the voice of criticism versus the voice of opportunity and possibility, right? So that really resonates for me as well. Not to mention just looking at the world right now and kind of this arc toward justice and seeing what's going on and in the world and feeling this sense from the collective of pushing against injustice, you know? So it's just it's interesting. Yeah. My eldest is a Libra and she is all about balance. It's so cute. Yeah, she's all about fairness. And, a lot of times there's like, Mom, it's just not fair. And, I say, honey, like, life isn't always fair, right? Like, that's not a guarantee. And she's like, well, if that's the case, then it's on us to make it more fair, which is so Libra, right? She's 11. And I'm like, you are 100% right. Yes. Yeah, I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, so yeah, we really are very aligned, very similar. Even down to our initial. RC. It's such a beautiful question, and I actually wanted to sit with that question a little bit, like, what is home? What does that mean to me? And I think for me, it's really about it almost reminds me a little bit of like an altar, and it's for me, home is the cultivation of a space and an energy together. So it's kind of like cultivating, creating this space where you feel both this ability to be totally held and supported and restored, but also you have that space to feel inspired and expanded. So it's kind of like creating a home justice, coming back to balance. You have that sense of balance in your home for the acceptance, for the belonging, for the restoration. And then you also have the space in the home that gets you to want to grow and expand and be curious. It's both of those things in one space. Yeah, that's so true. And I think for so long, we've really associated home with the physical structure. And I think now we're recognizing a lot about like coming home within ourselves, right? That sense of belonging that I think is such a core human need. And belonging and not fitting in, but truly belonging, which means being accepted for who you are, as you are right here, right now. And I think that that is something that we all deserve. And hopefully, the world is hopefully moving toward a place of people feeling like whoever they are, that they belong because they do. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for that beautiful story. I'm so honored. Like my heart is so full when you went into pigment, and there's so many beautiful things at pigment. So for the book to really stand out to you, that makes me so happy. So thank you so much for that. My background is actually in environmental education. I spent over a decade working in environmental education at places like Monterey Bay Aquarium, the San Diego Zoo, Sea Life Park Hawaii, New England Aquarium. And I worked both as an educator as well as a wild animal specialist and trainer. So when I was in Hawaii, I was working with dolphins and some whales and seals and sea lions, and I would help to release these little baby sea turtles. It was amazing. And then when I was at the wild animal park or the safari park here, I trained and worked with all kinds of animals, from like alligators and birds to the lions and the cheetahs, and the New Guinea singing dogs, who were like my favorite. No, I didn't have a favorite. They were all my favorite. But so my background was really in connecting people with nature. That's always been something that is just like so big in my heart. I was raised in a pretty religious environment. I was raised in modern Orthodox Judaism. I am not a religious person. I have never been a religious person, but raised in the kind of insular religious community, I always felt like there was something more, and I definitely didn't feel connection to divinity from, all the rules and regulations of religion. For me, it just felt like, I don't get this. This seems really just very rule-oriented, very authoritative. There was a lot of love, there was a lot of community, but for me, there was always something missing. And there was a lot of spending time in synagogues growing up, a lot of prayer, a lot of, even having to like read the Old Testament in Hebrew and Aramaic. And it was very intense. I learned a lot. But for me, I felt the divinity. I felt God, for lack of a better word. I like to use the word creator now. But I felt creator energy in nature, when I was going for walks, when I was climbing trees, when I was at the ocean. Like any moment that I was engaged with the natural world, that's when I felt the spark of divine. And for me, that spark of the divine was really enhanced through the recognition of our interconnectivity. Recognizing that, the plants feed us through their breath and we feed them through our breath. To me, like, what is not more divine than that symbiotic relationship of how we feed each other, we need each other. Our breath breathes each other, right? I get chills even thinking about it. It's so simple, yet so magical and so beautiful. So I studied ecology. I moved to Hawaii after my undergrad, worked in marine education, moved to San Diego, worked at the Wild Animal Park, got my master's in marine biodiversity and conservation from Scripps Institute of Oceanography. And then I moved to Monterey and worked at Monterey Bay Aquarium. And while I loved what I did and loved working at zoos and aquarium, I also was dealing with a lot of inner depression and inner anxiety. And the term that I like to use for what I was feeling is known as eco-anxiety or ecophobia. And what that means is basically we are feeling a sense of mental duress, mental stress, and anxiety, and just existential fear over the destruction of our planet, or what feels like the destruction of our planet. It's the environmental destruction is causing this level of anxiety and fear. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who has dealt with those feelings, especially living through the times we're living through. So while I loved what I was doing, I recognized there was a really big disconnect between what I was feeling on the inside and what was happening on the outside. And for a long period of time, I kind of just ignored what was going on the inside. I didn't yet have that understanding of like, as above, so below, as within, so without. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't really in the spiritual spaces yet. And then after the birth of my second daughter, when she was about 6 months old, I had anxiety come back really, really strong for me, to the point where I was having terrible insomnia and I was getting like 3 hours of sleep every night. And I had a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And insomnia, lack of sleep, can really perpetuate and grow and like just amplify the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of depression, the feelings of just fear and worthlessness that I was feeling. Being that I had dealt with anxiety before, I noticed the signs within myself. I went back to therapy. I got on some anti-anxiety medications. I was very lucky though, because my therapist at the time was also an energy worker on the side. And so she saw like, you're really stuck in your sacral and your third eye in particular. You're really stuck with your creativity, with your authentic expression, with you feeling like you. And so she recommended, yes, we would talk and she recommended lots of stuff, of course, but she also recommended this really beautiful book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It's a pretty famous one. And it's all about working through writer's block or just creative blocks. And so I started doing morning pages where I would just journal every morning for 3 pages. And from there, I felt kind of like my inner spark ignite again. When I was able to kind of just leave all the worries on the paper, it was an energetic outpouring, right? So I could bring out that worried, spiraling energy, leave it all on the paper, and then I was open again to receive inspiration. And the thing that inspired me at that time was succulent. And especially it was creating little pieces of living art with clipped succulents from my backyard. And I got inspired. I just had this kind of compulsion to just get creative, to get artsy. So during my daughter's afternoon naps, instead of doing the laundry and all the chores on the to-do list, I would take a few hours and I would go out in the backyard and I would clip some succulents and find some cool twigs and stones and some crystals. And I would make these terrariums, usually with like things I'd find from thrift stores, because I love thrift store shopping. And I just had the most magical thing happen for me, is that when I was engaged in making this art with the plants, hands in the soil, moving things around, my mind went completely silent. I didn't have the ruminating thoughts. And for anyone who's ever dealt with anxiety, one of the reasons anxiety is so hard to kind of let go of is because it creates this spiraling rumination of thoughts in your head, and you kind of feel like you get trapped in them. And even with the talk therapy, even with the anti-anxiety medication, I still had those spiraling thoughts. But when I was engaged in creating with nature, those thoughts went away. In fact, all thoughts went away. And I was really just present, with the plants, with my own creativity, with my own intuition, which I didn't know at the time, but started growing the more I did this. So I started making a lot of art pieces because it felt so good to me. It was so beneficial, the way I would feel when I would do it. And then I loved what I was making. And so I started gifting it to neighbors and friends. And then they would come to me and ask for me to make something for them to go to a party or a wedding or whatever it was. And that's really how my business, Infinite Succulent, started, was really just like from my own emotional needs, finding something that created a sense of medicine. Truly, it was medicine for me. And really leaning into that joy, leaning into that sense of well-being. And because I have a background in teaching, one of my friends was like, why don't you do workshops and teach people how to make these things? So the first 3 years of Infinite Succulent, I was really going all around San Diego County, leading workshops in succulent art and planted art. And that's how my first book, Infinite Succulent, came to be. It actually fell into my lap. I didn't even request it. I didn't even know I wanted that at that time. I just received an email from an editor, and she's like, I am work for this small publishing house. We want a succulent craft book. I love what you're doing. Are you interested in writing this book? So I had like 2 months to write a quick proposal, got it in, got that book deal. And then my first book, Infinite Succulent, Miniature Living Art to Keep or Share, is a book about crafting with succulents and how you can clip them and make art and then take the art apart and replant them, and just the infinite nature of the plants themselves, which is that they love to be clipped, they love to be made art from, they love to be repurposed. They're like little creative muses. I love them so much. So as I was working with the plants, I also noticed that I would find crystals, drilled crystals, at thrift stores, and I started planting into the drilled crystals. And as I continued to work with the plants, I noticed that I was having more sensitivity in my hands. And when I paired them with the crystals, it was like I could feel the plant breathing as I was planting it. I often have a little bowl of water next to me. So when I'm like making an arrangement, if one of the plant's root ball is really, really dry, I like to give it a nice drink before I replant it. And I noticed that I could feel when the roots were actually starting to drink the water. I could feel it move up into my hands and up into my forearm. And then I could feel when the plant had had enough and was done. And like, I didn't know how I knew any of this. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that I could feel it, and I knew that I just knew. Which when we talk about intuition, I can tell a little bit more about. But it was kind of like following these little breadcrumbs that the plants kept kind of throwing my way. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm super interested in what's going on with these crystals. I want to learn more about crystal energy, crystal metaphysics. So I got certified as a crystal energy worker in 2018. And I started doing sessions on people using crystals. And I also would utilize clipped succulent on the chakras as well, because one of the things that's so amazing about succulents in particular is that when you clip them away from their root ball, they are not dead. It's not like a flower, right? Where you have a little bit of time and then they're kind of dead, and then you have to compost them, give them back to earth, right? Succulents are different. You can completely clip them away from their roots and they will still survive, and they will actually regrow their roots most of the time. So they have this really powerful life force within them, succulents in particular. All plants do, but succulents in particular have this very kind of creative, resilient life force that I find is really, really powerful in energy sessions. And what I love about using clipped succulents with my clients too is then the clients get to keep those plants and replant them and tend to them. And they have this beautiful connection with their own health and the health of the plants, which is just, it's a nice way for us to remember the symbiotic relationship we truly do have with plants. So that's kind of how I started getting into a little bit of energy work. And then when I was doing energy work on clients, of course, I started noticing that I would like hear things or see things or just feel things or know things and didn't really know what was happening. So I started to take some more classes to kind of work on cultivating my own intuitive gifts. And in 2020, after taking a bunch of classes, I realized not only am I highly intuitive and that I can feel people's feelings, but I'm also a medium. And I have the ability to connect in with the energy of those who've passed, but I also have the energy to connect in with the energy of plants, of animals, of water, of fire. It's everything. Like once we kind of open up to understanding that everything is energy, we recognize that things are more conscious than we ever knew before. And that, I can have a conversation with my water bottle. Not just the water inside the bottle, but the bottle itself has a level of consciousness that we can connect in with. And I know that might sound crazy, so very woo. And it's interesting because I have a science background and I love grounding things in with science too. But going through the experiences I've gone through, I've also gotten to this point of being very open-minded about the truly multisensory and multidimensional aspects of our existence. And that to me has created so much more magic in my life, so much more happiness, so much more wellness, and truthfully, so much more acceptance. Because life for humans on Earth right now is friggin' complicated. And it's not all light and love and rainbows, It's heavy and dense and confusing and painful. And all of that is true. But what also is true is that there is a divine flow of life force energy of prana that's being sent to all of us all the time. And while everything can be terrible, everything is also amazing simultaneously. And we get to choose where we focus our attention and what we open ourselves to receive. And the plants have been what have taught me that in particular. Whew, a long story. Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually am pretty varied in what I do right now. I definitely still do some plant styling, although that's a little bit less than what my focus used to be solely on plant styling and plant workshops. And it's funny because, you're all about holistic design. And I came to this from a place of interior design with plants. I call myself a plant stylist. So I don't do as much like outdoor landscapes, but I do interior just plantscaping is what I like to call it. So I still do some of that, but my major focus right now is really on spiritual life coaching and energy work. And then, of course, I write. I have my book that just came out. And then I also do moon letters, where every month I share the energies of the new moon and the full moon. So you just subscribe to my newsletter for that. I often share a ritual you can do with it as well. And I'm starting to do more in-person moon circles around as well, because for a while it was mainly all just like, here's something you could do at home since, with COVID and everything. But now that we're coming back out, doing moon circles. So really the spiritual life coaching is my focus right now. And for me, I'm kind of niched in that my spiritual life coaching really focuses on helping people grow their intuitive gifts and their energetic understanding and utilizing their relationship with nature to feel more magical. So everything that I do is going to incorporate a very personal, intimate, creative relationship with nature, with the natural world. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this brief too, because there's such a magical story around this book. So what was funny is that when I was writing my first book, as soon as I finished writing it and kind of was waiting for it to come out, doing all the edits and stuff, I had this idea of, I want to write a book that's all about how plants benefit people from a physical standpoint, a mental and emotional standpoint, and from a spiritual standpoint too. And so I was starting to write this book proposal for it. I had sent it to my first agent, my first publishing house. My editor at the time loved it. They brought it to their marketing team and they were like, yeah, we don't really know how to sell this book or position it, so we're not going to move forward with it. So I took a few months off to kind of be like, okay, what am I going to do with this? I got rejected, rejection, But that's when I really started investing in myself in some of these courses for intuitive development in particular, because I always knew I had intuitive gifts. I was a kid who would often have somewhat predictive dreams. I knew that I could read people's minds, but it was never in a place of I don't like to use the word control, but it was never something I could kind of call upon. It kind of just happened to me. And I didn't feel like I had any ability to really connect in with it and use it like a tool, which it is. I believe our intuition is one of our tools. So I always knew I had it, but I didn't know how to work with it, how to develop it. And working with the plants, I felt even more that I had it, because every now and then like I said, I could feel their energy as I was working with them. And sometimes in meditation, I would hear them talk and send me messages of love and acceptance. And the message my plants in particular send to me quite often, because I'm a recovering perfectionist, is we are not perfect. We don't strive to be. Why are you? We don't get this, Right. So I wanted to feel that more. I wanted to feel more able to connect in with my intuitive gifts. So I started doing more courses, worked with a writing coach, and found a new literary agent and started sending the book proposal out all over the place. Got so much rejection, But again, all of that rejection was helping me develop my own gifts. It was giving me time to cultivate, what I'm able to offer, how I'm able to connect. And finally, I heard back from this one publishing house that were like, this is really interesting. It feels really big. It feels kind of like an encyclopedia. But what if we were to focus only on the spiritual side of working with plants? What would that look like? So I got so excited because I'm like, that's me. That's how I live. And so I totally rewrote the book proposal. I was so excited. And I was very much attached to it and to the outcome, as one does when they're really into something. And when I sent it in, like, my literary agent loved it, the editor loved it, and they brought it to the marketing team. And the marketing team was like, we don't know how to sell this book. So I got another big rejection, and I was a little bit crushed for a few days. And then I was like, okay, I'm not getting stuck here. What's next? And within a few days, I heard back from my editor, or lady who turned out to be my editor, but the woman who was interested in my initial idea. And she's like, what if we reposition this less about the spiritual side of, the benefits of plants, but more about the plant magic? Everyone got plants over COVID. Now, how can people be really intentional with working with their plant? How should they style their plants? How can they use their plants to bring in more spiritual connection or senses of magic into their life? And so I had to sit with that to be like, okay, first of all, does that resonate with me and what I do? And in order to do that, I had to really define magic for myself, because I think magic is one of those words that we throw around, but it's kind of like success, where you're like, it's this word we throw around, but what does it actually mean to me, right? Because success, magic, those are words that can be really, really personal. So I sat with this understanding, okay, what is magic to me? Well, magic to me is the understanding that everything is actually energy, and the knowing that we can then intentionally move, shift, transform, manipulate that energy. And once I had that definition, I was like, that is exactly what I do with plants and what I've always done with plants. When I started working with plants, it was the magic of transforming my inner world. It was the magic of transforming my belief of who I was and what was possible for me. It was really the magic of turning off the anxious brain and being present in my soul. I mean, really, that's what happened when I first started working with plants. So once I defined magic and recognized what that meant to me, I was like, whoa, this is totally the book I'm supposed to write. And what was amazing was that as I was writing the book, actively writing it, as I was working on the magical plant profile, because there's 45 magical plant profiles in here, I had this process where I would do some research on the plant in terms of ecology of the plant, the physiology of the plant, the medicines of the plant, if they've been utilized for that, the history of using the plant, magic-wise or metaphysically wise. And then I would sit with each plant in meditation and ask the plant to come through and share an energy, a wisdom, some guidance for us right now. So it was really cool because, first of all, I had this knowing as I was writing that this is actually the book I had conceptualized to begin with, but the universe knew so much better than me how this book was going to come out. And all of that rejection got me to the place where I could sit in meditation and have this really personal connection to the plants, really bring my own magic into the pages of this book, which if I had gotten that original book deal, that wouldn't have been in there. It would have been such a different book, and it wouldn't have had all this magic woven into it. And I get a lot of feedback from people about the book that they can really feel that sense within it. And what was cool too is some of the rituals in the book. As I was creating the rituals, I called in the most amazing magic. With the lemon balm, there's a manifestation spell jar ritual. And when I was kind of perfecting that ritual, when I was working on it, I ended up calling in this amazing gig last year where I ended up planting almost 300 of my amethyst succulents for Ariana Grande's gift boxes. And that's the magic of opening to the opportunities, I don't want to use the word magic again, but that's really the magic of nature and the magic of working with plants, is recognizing that things are so much more both simple and complex than we know. And it's also this like magic of releasing the control. And one of the things that I love, and I hope comes through with this book in particular, is to recognize that it's not the crystals or the plants themselves that are making this magic happen. It's you conducting the crystal energy and the plant energy in very intentional ways that's making the magic happen. So it's you that are the magic sauce here. It's always going to be you that are the most magic, but we can utilize these amazing, generous tools from nature to help us amplify, infuse, and feel more into our own magic. And then, of course, to get very specific and more focused in what we're calling in as well. That was through my publishing house. She's amazing. She is a Chilean artist and illustrator. Her name is Maya Hanish. She's incredible. And my editor sent me a couple of different illustrators to look through, and I really loved Maya's stuff because I loved that it had this like realistic, kind of almost like scientific realism to it, but it also had this sense of kind of magical, like whimsy. So to me, it had this beautiful sense of like magical realism in the sense of like Isabel Allende or Gabriel Garcia Marquez, where it like feels very real and tangible, but there's also that sense of like the mystical and the magical, which to me is so what this book is about, and really what I'm about, which is kind of a grounded approach to magic, a grounded approach to spirituality. My spirituality is very earth-based. I am never trying to ascend away from earth. I'm trying to actually bring more of earth energy into me and connect the energy of earth with the energy of the cosmos. Like I see myself, just like the trees, I am a bridge to help connect earth with heaven. All of us are. So, so my publishing house, Hardy Grant, are incredible. My editor, Kate Burkett, was so amazing. The graphic designer, Olivia Bush, she's incredible. And it was like this beautiful, this is one of the nice things about getting a traditional publishing deal. You have a team of people who really help you so that you can have this like end product that not only has words that really resonate, but has a look and a feel that people really resonate with as well. And one of the things that's interesting about this book that's I think a little different than other plant books or plant magic books is that I actually really dive into the sun, the moon, the elements, the direction, the seasons. And I have a whole section on the chakras because I'm an energy worker, and the magic that I work with plants has a lot to do with the human energy system. So there's a whole focus on the chakra system and how we can work with nature to help feel more balance through each chakra. And then for each plant profile, I also share, like you can see a little bit, I share different crystals that go with that plant, the chakras that plant helps to balance, the element that rules that plant, how you can magically work with that plant. And then, of course, just information about the plant, what it wants to share. And then there's a number of rituals in there as well that include spells, include some recipes like teas and tinctures, include some guided meditations. So it's got a lot in there. Kind of like me, we cover a lot. Yeah. Yeah. I would love that. So one of the things I talk about in the book a lot is whether the plant that you're working with, especially in your home, is going to have more of the restorative, more kind of feminine, not feminine in terms of gender, but just that kind of more feminine yin energy of restoration, or whether the plant's going to be a little bit more motivational, a little bit more active and have more yang energy, more of the masculine energy. So my top 5 plants for that yang energy would be 1, Sansevieria or snake plant. Oh my gosh, amazing. I always tell my clients they look and feel like an exclamation point because they do. So Sansevieria, Dracaena or dragon tree, palm trees, especially like the palms you can bring into your home. Those are also amazing for motivation. Aloe vera is another one that I love. And aloe vera can kind of go both ways because that's one of my favorites, both for yang and for yin. So it's a great one for balance. So just so you know, like those motivational energies, best place to put those in your home, social areas, workspaces. So like in your office, in your studio, if you actually have a workout space, Sansevierias and some of these like very motivational plants are fantastic for that. Plus they create more oxygen for you as you're breathing a little heavier, right? So they're great for that. Now for more yin spaces, your bedrooms, your like place where you just want to sit and watch TV or something, then I would recommend some other plants. So pothos would be my first, also very easy to care for. Sometimes people call them devil's ivy. Personally, I don't like that name. I like to call them infinite ivy instead because I think I'm like devil's ivy. That seems mean. So pothos is fantastic. I also love philodendron. Now, some philodendron might be a little bit more yang, but for the most part, philodendron have more yin restorative energies, which I love. I also love syngonium or arrowhead leaf plants, or arrowhead, arrow leaf. The common names I kind of get confused with sometimes because there could be so many. But syngonium is one of my favorite. I also really love orchids. Orchids can be fantastic. Now, again, there's lots of different orchids out there, and some types of orchids have a bit more of the yang energy, but most of the ones we have in our homes are more of the yin energy. And then aloe vera. And aloe vera, again, is one that you can utilize for both, which I think is really cool, that they have this beautiful balance within them. So aloe vera, when you look at it, it kind of gets kind of pokey and spiny, and it has this like sculptural quality. I'm doing all these funny things. I'm being the aloe. They have this like sculptural, like moving upward energy, which is where the yang comes in. But when you're really working with aloe and with its energy, it's so much softer. It's so much more feminine. And especially if you want to work with some of the gel, especially in like aloe vera in particular, it's so restorative for our skin. It can be restorative for our gut too, if we're, good about making sure we clean off the latex from it before we eat it, that kind of thing. But it has a restorative impact on the body. So in that sense, I really see it being super balanced. And it's one of the reasons why I like telling people it's a great plant to bring in to have both of those energies. And as we talked about in the beginning, when we're cultivating home, it kind of is about both of those energies and recognizing when do we need more restoration and when do we need more motivation, and learning to kind of discern and differentiate between those two, and then knowing what tools can we use to help us when we're calling that in. Yeah. That reminds me of the judgment card that you pulled earlier too. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that I'm a big fan that like everyone should have at least one plant in their home. Just for lots of reasons. I mean, there's, the style side of it, but what's really cool about the plants too, and this is part of their magic, is some of the research that has shown us what happens to our brain when we see green. And I don't mean like the color green, I mean like foliage, just looking at leaves and looking at plants really has an impact on our autonomic nervous system and helps us move from the sympathetic nervous system, which is more of that fight or flight response, into parasympathetic, which is more of the rest and digest. So, with the stress we all have in our modern society, we don't realize how much we're operating in sympathetic and how sometimes it can feel hard to relax, right? Like sometimes have you ever, these moments where I'm supposed to be relaxing right now and I just can't, right? Like that's us stuck in the sympathetic system. And just spending time with plants, going out for a walk, filling your home with plants creates kind of and it's not even conscious. It's almost like the subconscious reaction in our brain to relax a little, breathe a little deeper. And, just looking at the research, and I'm kind of going into a tangent here, but there's a lot of scientific research that has shown that even just a view of plants from a recovery room in a hospital post-surgery, if you have a view of a forest versus a view of a brick wall, you will heal faster with less need of pain medication or even anxiety medication. And you typically rate your stay at the hospital as more positive than if you didn't have that view. Or they also did the study with if you had a plant in your room versus not having a plant in your recovery room. So there's a lot of science behind how plants impact the nervous system and the brain in particular. But going back to snake plant, it's one of my favorite plants. Super easy to care for. It's great for people who are beginning with plants because it's very forgiving. It's one of the most independent plants you can bring into your home. Doesn't need to be babied at all. But one of the reasons I love it is because it can be very empowering as well. I think a lot of the times we talk a lot about infusing crystals, right? Like giving our crystals a job. But I don't think we realize we can do the same thing with our plants. We can infuse our plants with an intention and ask the plant to do a specific job for us. And with the snake plant, I'm going to bring one down because I have one right here by my desk and I just kind of want to show it. So with the snake plant, we can actually give it this beautiful job of being a guardian for our home. One of the common names for this type of Sansevieria, which is a trifecta, is also St. George's sword because it kind of looks like a sword, right? So you can think of the snake plant as being the armed knight in front of your home or right inside your home that's protecting your home from any unwanted energies coming in and is keeping in what you've created inside that you want to keep. So you can infuse your snake plant as you either plant it or position it in your home. You can say some words, you can infuse it energetically to give it this job of becoming an energetic guardian for your space. And that's what we're going to do together. And it's a ritual in the book too. So if you don't have a chance to meet with us together too, just know it's in the book. I'm so happy. I'm so happy I did that. Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry. Thank you so much. What an honor that is. That is just, wow, my heart. Thank you so, so much. I would love to. Yeah, I would absolutely love to. And just so you know, I do also, you can purchase the book, wherever books are sold, Amazon, Indie Book, all the places. But I also do have some books for sale on my website, and those are signed copies as well. Yeah, I'm about to launch my first group coaching program, all about cultivating your own intuition. And this is going to be an 8-week group coaching program. I'm taking about 10 people max because I want it to be a small group so that we can really interactively read each other and just have this very intimate interactive experience. And it's really going to be all about diving into your intuition and learning how to use it like a muscle and work it out and trust in the information you're getting. So that's coming in February. And that's what I got going on. Oh, and then just in general, I offer one-to-one sessions, and my sessions are around either plant consults, so I can kind of be like a plant liaison for people. I audit your home space or your business space. I talk to you about your lifestyle and the energies you want to bring in, and then I offer recommendations for plants as well as where to place them. And for some people, I'll even offer recommendations for caring for the plants, depending on how much they know about the plants or not. I also offer one-to-one energy sessions. I do chakra reads, which is more like a 30-40 minute thing where I just look at your chakras, tell you what's going on, and offer some suggestions to help bring back balance. And then I also have full energy sessions, which are typically about 2 hours long, where we get in and I get into every chakra, every layer of your aura. We're going to clean things out. We're going to re-energize. And as a medium, there's often a lot of stuff that comes through in a session. Like often there'll be ancestors that come in or guides, often spirit guides come in during sessions. And so I get to narrate and translate kind of what's happening there as well. And those are usually about 2 hours long. And then I also offer intuitive reads, which I call spirit sessions, which is just an opportunity to sit with me, ask for some guidance from spirit. There's often mediumship that comes in for that as well. So it's kind of like a mediumship intuitive read. And then I have coaching packages as well. I have 4-session, 8-session, and 12-session coaching packages that dive into all this stuff too. Yeah. And you can find it all on my website, infinitesucculent.com. Yeah, that's such a beautiful question and such an important question right now too. So for me, I do have a morning routine where every morning I do some just stretching and I do some movements that kind of open up each chakra. But my non-negotiables for grounding and feeling centered in myself and feeling like just centered in my own energy, there are actually 2 things that I do. Both of them are in the book. The first one is called Activating Your Magic. And this is a ritual which basically you open up your root chakras and you extend your roots from your feet down into the earth. And then you pull that energy up into your body as you inhale. And I think that's really important because from an energetic perspective, what grounding actually means from an energy medicine view is to be connecting in and pulling in earth energy. That's what grounding actually is energy-wise. So in order for me to ground, the first thing I always need to do is feel my roots extend into earth, my energetic roots extend into earth, and feel myself pulling that energy up into my body. That alone could be enough. But for me and for being in my own essence, what I do from there is I also open the crown chakra and feel myself to begin to pull in from the cosmos as well. And when we do our snake plant bell together in February, I'll walk everyone through this because I start every ritual with this because it's called Activating Your Magic. This is getting you activated to then infuse things and clear things and just be in your magical space. So you have your root open, you have your crown open, you're pulling energy in from earth, you're pulling energy in from the cosmos. You let that energy just kind of dance around you, no forcing, no control, just letting it be inside of you. So you do about 3 breaths like that, and then you pull in and you very intentionally put all that energy into your solar plexus chakra. So right in the space right here, just kind of below where the rib cage splits. So you pull all the energy that you just pulled into your being, you pull it into your solar plexus until you feel, it feels kind of like a bubbly sensation, this spark. And for people who are very clairvoyant, who kind of have a lot of visions behind their closed eyes, it's almost like you see yourself glowing from the inside out. And when you get that feeling, and what it does is you can't help but smile. Like it just brings a smile to your face when you really feel that activation. And that feeling, that full solar plexus and that sense of like spark and magic, that is self-love. That is the actual feeling of being immersed in loving yourself in this moment. And from that place, you can infuse things, you can clear things, you can connect more deeply with your own intuitive gifts. So that's a non-negotiable for me. So I do that every morning, and I usually do it with a glass of lemon water. And then as soon as I get that going and I kind of drink my water to seal it all in, then I do the practice where I turn to every direction with my lemon water. And this is a ritual that you can find under lemon in my book. I turn to each direction, I call in the direction, and I call in the element that goes with that direction. I bring that into my body, into my aura for balance. I thank it for what it offers. I ask it for balance, and I do that for every direction until I feel completely infused with the energy that is me and the energy that is nature, because I think they're in a lot of ways one and the same, letting that really move through me. And those are my non-negotiables every day. And it only takes like 5 minutes. It like once you kind of get it down, I can do it all in 5 minutes. Yeah. And I think maybe that's what we are all kind of asking to come back to in so many ways. And whatever spaces, it feels like we're kind of being pulled to these like polar opposites from each other. But in reality, that's not truly how we feel. We're all really more in balance and in the middle. So kind of this recognition of the soul desire and the soul connection already to balance and to understanding that the world isn't black and white. Like, I think we are sold this idea of right and wrong and black and white and got to be this way or that way. And it's just not true. You got to figure out what's right or wrong for you for this moment. Of course, we can get into ethics and morals, but that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But I think, again, coming back to that place of acceptance, coming back to the place of the heart chakra, compassion, acceptance, unconditional love. And one of the things I speak about in the book is that every single plant, first and foremost, are heart chakra balancers. Every single plant, first and foremost, touches us in the heart chakra space. And that's because plants create the air we breathe, and the heart chakra governs our lungs and our breath. So the way that we connect in with plants, the relationship we have with them, is from the heart. And it's always been from the heart, and it will always be from the heart. And what's cool about that too is when I'm doing energy sessions on people, 80% of the time when I'm in people's heart chakras, I'm in the most gorgeous, like jungle, rainforest, like old growth forest, so beautiful. Some of my clients, I'm in outer space or on different planets, but 80% of the time I am in this just glorious forest when I'm in the heart chakra. Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Thank you. I am totally open for that invitation. Love it. I have worked with some designers for that in the past, and I would love to work with more, especially for people who want to bring in crystals too, because I can also work with the energy of crystals to create recommendations for, what we might want to bring in or what we might want to remove as well. So to find me, it's pretty easy. I've got the same name pretty much on all the sites, which is Infinite Succulent, singular. So you can find me on Instagram at Infinite Succulent. You can also find me on TikTok at Infinite Succulent and on YouTube. I'm not really on Facebook, you guys. Like, stuff goes on there, but I don't go on there. It's not a place I like to be, so I don't spend much time there. But you can definitely find me on my website, infinitesucculent.com. And if you love what you've heard, if you want to dive in more, if you just want to geek out over plants and crystals and chakras and energy and magic, please DM me or send me an email through their website. I love just dialoguing on all this, and I love connecting with more people who feel the same way I do about our relationship with nature. And is it okay if I share one more thing? Because this came in meditation this morning. I'm about to start a program to learn more about somatics and the pelvic floor and just kind of understanding the nervous system even more. And I had this phrase come into my head in meditation this morning, which was that it's now time to co-regulate with Earth. Because co-regulation is a big term in kind of like the somatic world, which is the idea of like people and relationships, we have to co-regulate with each other. We breathe with each other. We look into each other's eyes. And like with a child, when you think about a child who's having a temper tantrum and you hold them and you're just trying to have them co-regulate with you and bring their nervous system back down. And I just got this hit that like the Earth is now asking for us again to co-regulate with her. Like we're all needing to kind of co-regulate with Earth. And a great example of that you can see is in this season, right? Like how many people are you talking to right now? And they're like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And the truth is that it's winter. We're supposed to be hibernating. We're supposed to be taking it slow and easy. But in our modern society, this has become the busiest season of the year. There are parties, there's shopping, there's selling, and it's just, we are not co-regulated with Earth and her seasons. At least here in the Northern Hemisphere. All our Southern Hemisphere friends, good job, good on ya, right? You're in summer. That's when Christmas should be, I guess. But for those of us up here, it's like we kind of have to fight society to come back to a place of what our body's actually asking for. So I know personally, I've really been working in a lot of rest into this season because I launched a book a month ago. It's been a really busy season for me too. And just making sure that I create the space for the rest, for the hibernation has been so vital, especially these last 2 years. Because last year in the winter, I was writing a book. My manuscript was due beginning of January. So yeah. So just making sure. Yeah. Yes. And I can feel when I'm starting to get like I don't want to say burnt out because I don't feel like I'm super burnt, but like, just a little bit burnt out when you're kind of like, I don't feel like I have a lot of motivation or inspiration. I kind of don't want to do anything. So, in those moments, having some grace for myself, some compassion for myself, and also giving my body what it needs so that then the motivation, the inspiration comes back again. Yeah. And that's why in my house, you'll see that I've got plants like everywhere. And I often do pair, like on my workspace right here, I have paired Dracaena, Dragon Tree, and Sansevieria for motivation, but I also have a Syngonium right here on my desk to bring in more of that receptivity, more of that restorative element, and to have a sense of balance in my workspace too. Yeah. Oh my goodness, Rachel, thank you so much for inviting me. I was so excited when I got your DM, and thank you for creating this beautiful space for people to be able to talk about energy from a standpoint of design. I think that, and also talk about just like the holistic quality of life of our just living from the standpoint of our homes. I just think it's such a beautiful thing you've created. So thank you so much. It's been such an honor.
You've been listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business podcast. If it's one that you have been enjoying, please share with anyone else that you think can benefit from this knowledge, and leave us a 5-star review that helps us get seen and found by other new and aspiring interior designers. And if you're looking for mentorship, I invite you to join our club here at the Design Coven. It's a bridge between school and real life interior design. We get in much deeper there. We have virtual and in-person events, so everyone is welcome. You don't need to have a design degree to be part of it, just an interest in holistic interior design. I also want to thank our editor, Marcy Ferry, Blake Ferris, for all of her special help with the podcast, our social media posts, newsletter, and lastly, Kinseth Thibodeau, who is our music composer. Until next time, be well, and we will see each other soon.